Alright, can anyone confirm whether or not they can hear me? I very much hope that the audio is working, and I cannot tell if it is. We are already off to a smooth start here. And if you can hear me, then apologies. Still trying to figure out whether or not my audio is coming through. Okay, it looks like it is. Alright, splendid. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to a live stream. I haven't done this before. Can you tell? Anyway, there's not much to go through tonight. We are simply going to run the time trial qualifying session for the first race of the 2021 American Short Trackers Voltson Super Truck season. This is a V6 short track pickup truck racing series that competes primarily on short tracks in Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. And the series hasn't seen action since 2019, but we are back, and better than ever, back to the place where it all began, at Michigan International Speedway. And I forgot to change the car that I'm driving as the player. Oops. Anyway, it's time for qualifying. Each of the 32 trucks entered into the race will take to the track for 2 laps each. Their faster lap will be kept and recorded, and whoever has the fastest at the end of the day wins the pole position and the singular bonus point that comes with it. The order in which the cars will be taken to the track was determined through a random draw. And slot number one in the running order, in the qualifying order, went to Saginaw's Daniela Jacobson.
Is about to give the command to get underway down at the head of the field. Let's listen in. The Grand Marshal for today's race is about to give the command to get underway down at the head of the field. Let's listen in.
Jacobson is one of the 2 Team Michigan trucks entered into today's race. This team has been competing in the series since midway through 2014, and despite only having a combined 3 wins between their 2 trucks, have been one of the most competitive teams all throughout their duration in the series. Jacobson joined the team in 2015, just after they started, and she has yet to win a race in this series, despite having just as much speed as her older teammate Amberly Weiss has. Jacobson, a 20-year-old competitor from the Auto City Speedway over in Flint. Beginning her first warm-up lap, the limitations of NR 2003, as I'm sure all of you understand, mean that single car qualifying is technically not possible, so I'm doing the next best thing. I'm running 1-car rosters for a race, taking lap 1 as a warm-up lap, and laps 2 and 3, I'm gonna call their qualifying times. It's not a very straightforward way to do things, but I think single car qualifying is fun. I enjoy watching old NASCAR videos, Cup Busch trucks, old qualifying broadcasts. I've always felt like single car qualifying was made for a nice showcase opportunity for a lot of the teams and drivers who didn't necessarily get any attention or time on the TV screen on race day. Good opportunity to inform people and update people of new happenings. And meanwhile here, in the Voltson Super Trucks, Jacobsen is already halfway done with her first lap. These trucks will be going full throttle all the way around the racetrack in qualifying trim with new tires. They may not be able to keep their foot to the floor for the entire duration of the 100-mile race, but they should at least be able to do so for qualifying, hopefully. And the very first lap of the day is 42.647. Let's see if lap 2 looks any better for Jacobsen here. In the red rose clothing Lennard. This body kit new to the series this year. This Lennard pickup truck body kit, which was not available before. Every truck in the field is either a SAR, a Lennard, or an Isani, which is a very limited presence in American motorsports. Coming to the line. Slight improvement over lap 1, a whole 0.2 in fact, or a whole 1/10, I'm sorry, 42.536. And Daniela Jacobsen sets the mark for everyone else to go after through the rest of the session. Let's record that time down. Well, actually, first let's record the session. I'm going to save the replay of whoever gets the pole position, and since I don't know if anyone's going to beat Jacobsen's time here, I will save this one to start. Alright, let's put her time in. And that's Jacobsen, done with her qualifying run. Back to the game. I'm going to try and roll through this a little more quickly as I go.
The Grand Marshal for today's race is about to give the command to get underway.
I have the weather settings fixed
Down at the head of the field. Let's listen
to
in.
a preset conditions so that nobody has an advantage or disadvantage in terms of weather here. And next on the track is the 94 truck of Alex DeFranco for the Midwest Motors team. DeFranco, one of the drivers in this series hailing from Detroit, has been competing in this series for some time now, but not for the past few years. DeFranco and this team moved over to the FARC Truck Series. They used to compete in this championship with 2 trucks, but when they moved up to the FARC Truck Series, they only fielded the one, and DeFranco was the one assigned to drive it. DeFranco's old Super Trucks teammate Juan Cortez was listed as the car owner in that operation. But with the FARC Truck Series not being contested this year, a few teams have moved over to the Voltson Super Trucks, technical regulations virtually identical between the two. And DeFranco and his team are one of them. He is back, and so is Cortez. The 2-truck team has returned from Midwest Motors. First lap on the boards, and it's a 42.721. Couple tenths off Jacobsen's 42.536. But if he can pick up 2 more tenths here, he might have a shot at beating that time. DeFranco's best finish in this series came at this very racetrack in, I believe, 2017. It was either 17 or 16. Admittedly, I'm not sure which. But he brought the car home third that day, which was his only podium result of the series, but he has many more top 5s and top 10s to his name. He's been a very consistent driver, and it's a 42.642. His second lap, much like Jacobson's, an improvement over the first, and he was not able to beat the 57 truck's time, but he's only 1/10 off of it. Almost exactly a 10th, in fact. I forgot to update this little box over here. Alright, back to the action in a moment. I suppose I could have made individual rosters. I suppose I could have made 32 separate one-truck rosters for the competitors competing in this weekend's race, but I'm just gonna modify it one at a time, so apologies for the downtime that leads to.
The Grand Marshal for today's race is about to give the command to get underway down at the head
Next
of
on the track, we have another Fark Truck Series team and racer. It's Flip Papadopoulos, the Chicago native, in one of the two Dale Clow racing trucks. Clow, a longtime short track racer from Illinois himself, has spent most of his races competing in trucks in the past several years, and he has brought his team over to the Voltson Super Trucks. This will be their first year of competition in this championship. Flip, I believe, is the second, he's the second oldest driver in the race here this weekend. He is 60 years old. The operator of a Greek diner in the Chicago area, which is all over the hood and doors of his truck. And we are not seeing nearly as high of speeds at the end of the straightaways or in the corners as the cars before him. His first lap is on the boards, and it's only a 43.9. That's over a full second off of Alex DeFranco's time. He's running a good 3 or 4 miles an hour slower through the corners. And that truck's not picking up much pace down the back straightaway. Clow's team has never been one for funding or resources, so the relative lack of pace may not be terribly surprising, but Flip's certainly giving it all he's got, and that was much improved over the first lap. It's a 43.316 for Flip Papadopoulos. Flip's gonna win, I see. Yeah, I'm sure he's just sandbagging. The Dale Clow trucks have been feigning incompetence for the past several decades, specifically to take everyone by surprise and win this race.
The Grand Marshal for today's race is about to give the command to get underway. The Grand Marshal for today's race. Let's listen in. To give the command to get underway. The Grand Marshal for today's race. Marshal for today's race.
It just occurred to me that I think Alan Bestwick's voice is probably coming over the stream. I can't really tell, so I should have removed that from the sound pack file so that you all aren't hearing that over and over again. Oops. Alright, well, speaking of the Dale Clow trucks, the driver who drew next in line in the running order is the man himself, Dale Clow, the 74-year-old Illinois racer from the Grundy County Speedway, and longtime competitor, very familiar to these here short track trucks. I forgot to mention during Flip's laps that Dale Clow and Papadopoulos have both been competing in the National Dirt Trucks in the months leading up to today's race. So they've had some seat time this year, but it doesn't appear to be paying off for Dale Clow so far. He's only just begun his second lap, but he's still in third gear. Maybe the wind pushed him in 3 or 4 coming to the line. Maybe he broke loose, hasn't gotten up to enough speed. Still in third gear heading into turn 3. I don't think he's going to hit 4th gear this entire lap. And only 157 miles an hour at the line. I think that's 10 miles an hour slower than the first couple of trucks were by the time they reached the finish line, and 46.2 is the best that Dale Clow could do for his first lap, but he's got one more chance right here. Not sure it's going to do him much better, still only rolling down the backstretch at 157 miles an hour. But there's only so much you can do when you do not have money or resources that some of the other teams have. At this stage, not many people have a lot of money to spend, but even relatively speaking, that still applies to the Clow trucks. His second lap is an improvement, albeit only slightly, and it's a 46.036 for Dale Clow in his first race, in the Voltson Super Trucks. Doesn't really matter where you start, though. Apart from pole position, all the points are awarded in the race itself. So maybe Clow and his team can operate under that strategy. It's about the only option they've got.
The Grand Marshal for today's race. About to give the command to get underway. Down at the head of the field to get underway. Down at the head of the field. Let's listen in.
Yeah, I should really remove that soundbite so that it won't be repeating itself over and over if I have to keep accelerating the race. Up next on the track, we have, I believe, well, no. I was about to say, I believe, our first debutant racer, but that would be both of the Dale Clow trucks, because they've technically never competed in this series before. I wasn't really thinking of them because they have been racing for a long time. Clow has, at least. And Papadopoulos has been competing in FARC for the past few years himself. But as far as a driver who we haven't seen on this level or any adjacent championships to it, I suppose you could call this our first of the day. This is Alex Robbins, the 22-year-old racer from West Virginia, and one of the 2 Lester Racing trucks competing in the series this year, the Casey Lester-owned team. Off to a much better start than I saw 170 miles an hour at the end of the back straightaway there. I'm not sure I've seen 170 there today. It's possible that I wasn't paying attention to Jacobson or DeFranco, but I don't think I saw 170 at the end of the backstretch, not on lap 1. And 42.546, That's exactly 1/100th of a second off of Jacobson's time. And that was only his first lap. We've seen the first 4 trucks all improve on their lap 2 so far. And I suppose that makes sense seeing as these trucks do take a fair bit of time to get up to speed, not a whole lot of power under the hood. Especially not compared to the ASCC All-American cars that are here this weekend. So trucks might not even be up to 100% full speed by the time they get to the end of lap 1, and we're now at the end of lap 2, and that's provisional pole position for Alex Robbins with a 42.4. 42.498 to be specific, just slightly under 42.5 seconds. Alright, let's see if I can do this quickly. Looks good, looks good. Alright, 5th car on the track, and the first driver to beat Daniela Jacobson's time, who was the first car, Alex Robbins, to the top of the board, but we still have a very long way to go here at MIS.
The Grand Marshal for today's race.
I forgot about the soundbite again.
Underway. Down at the head of the field. Underway.
Sorry.
About to give the command to get underway. Down at the head of the field. Let's listen in.
You know, I'm not sure I turned off, I think my Discord sounds might be coming through too. Oops. I've got kinks to work out here. Alright, next truck on the track, taking her warm-up lap, is Caitlin Holt, and if this truck and that name sound familiar to you, that's probably because this is the younger sister of Caden Holt. Caden competed in this series all the way back in 2014, as did this team. That was the first year in which this championship was contested, and Caden did not do a particularly his results were not particularly strong, to put it lightly. He was only 18 years old at the time and new to this level of racing, and unfortunately that lack of experience led to some pretty spectacular crashes, including right here at MIS, with a very large pileup off of turn 4 on, I believe, the 7th or 8th lap of the race. But he managed to improve to the point where he achieved an 8th place finish later that year. That was his best result of the season, and we haven't seen him or this team in the series since. But again, his younger sister, the Berlin Raceway competitor, is here today, and for every race this season, going to be going for the championship herself as a rookie. Coming to the line, her first lap is a 42.663. So very promising and very comparable speed to most of the other trucks who have gone thus far. Let's see what lap 2 looks like. Holt rolling with a fair bit of speed through the corner there in turns 1 and 2. And I think running a little wider than some of the other trucks have. Perhaps only slightly, but we'll have to see if that pays off. 171 miles an hour down the back straightaway. Peaking before diving into turn number 3. Time to see what lap 2 has in store here time-wise for Caitlin Holt at the line. And that's pole position, provisional pole for Caitlin Holt with a 42.44. And I just realized that I forgot to save Alex Robbins' lap time, so it's almost a good thing, sort of, that he didn't end up getting pole, because I would not have had that lap saved. I suppose it doesn't really matter, but I would prefer to either way. Alright. Alright, while I'm here, let me see if I can, let's just move this temporarily, see if that fixes anything. I suppose I'd have to back out of the game first. So let me do that, 42.440. And get the next driver in the queue set up.
Touch all your seatbelts, touch all your connections, touch your Honda.
Oh, there's another.
Sure you get everything like
Okay.
you want it.
Well, I guess we're getting a soundbite no matter what. Hopefully that's not too annoying. And I'm sorry if it is. Alright, next driver on the track is the other Midwest Motors truck. This is Juan Cortez in the 95. The Indiana dirt track racer, originally from Mexico. One of the many drivers in this championship who have lots of experience at the Terre Haute Action Track. For whatever reason, that racetrack and the area surrounding it have produced a lot of this series' most successful competitors. Cortez, we haven't seen him since, again, Midwest Motors left for the FARC Truck Series, and admittedly, he had a reputation when this team was last competing in the series for some very avoidable accidents, which resulted in some pretty spectacular highlight footage more than a few times, unfortunately for him. But it's a new year, a new look for this 95 truck, and we're gonna have to wait and see what it holds in store for Juan Cortez. That first lap is a 42.651. 42.6 has been what most of these drivers' first laps have been. I think Alex Robbins might have been the only one to start off his two-lap run with a 42.5. Not quite sure about that, as the E-Cola machine heads into turn number 3. And that's the end of lap 2. It's a 42.565 for Juan Cortez. just realized that I forgot to sort this. There we go. Let me just put that sound file back while I'm here.
Favor, touch all your seatbelts, touch all your connections, touch your Hans.
Oh, I
Make
forgot
sure you
to
get everything like you want
exit the game. Oh well. Truck number 77 has just begun his first timed lap of the day. This is Legend Hart, the legendary motorsports racer, in one of this team's 2 SARs. Hart has been competing in this championship, since 2016, making this his 5th year of competition in the series. This team has not won a race in the time that they've been competing here, with 1 truck in 2016 and a 2nd truck ever since, the 78. They've been very solid, though, getting the best out of their equipment week in and week out, even if it's not up at the very front of the field. And it was a 42.7 for Legend Hart's first of 2 laps. Going to see if he can improve it all here in the Lion and Hart electrical car. To the line, and it's a 42.6, slower than most of the other trucks that have gone so far, but not by much. Still right on pace with them, even if very slightly behind, and 1 lap pace again. Doesn't really matter as long as you are on pace largely with the rest of the field. The draft will play a very big role in tomorrow's race. That puts Hart 6th out of the 8 cars who have gone so far. Caitlin Holt still on the top of the boards.
Favor, touch all your seatbelts, touch all your connections, touch your Hans. Just make sure you get everything like you want it.
Alright, up next is the Craddock Motorsports truck. The number 44 machine of Robert Embry, the young late model racer from Lansing, just up the road from here. Driving a very Lansing looking truck, that's Quality Dairy, adorning this machine. Will be a very familiar brand to anyone from Lansing or the surrounding area. Embry looking to start his first race in the series tomorrow. This team will be showing up to roughly half the races on the tour, is their intent. It will be the first time that Embry has raced outside of the area. Embry, a competitor primarily at the Corrigan Oil Speedway. 42.55 for Robert Embry at lap 1, and that was in spite of running a little slower through turn 4, it looked like, on the speed tracker than some of the other trucks here. He's doing it again in turn 2 here, down to 163. That's lower than we saw trucks such as Jacobson and Robbins doing earlier. But it worked out well for him at the end of the first lap. See what lap 2 has in store. Running through the middle as everyone has been. That's where most of the grip has been here today. And I believe that Robert Embry, I think this might be the first time we've seen a truck go slower on their second lap today. It's only a 42.6, so that first lap is going to stand as his best time here, the 42.550.
Favor, just touch all your seatbelts, touch all your connections, touch your Hans. Just make favor, just touch all your seatbelts, touch all your connections, touch your Hans. Just make sure you get everything like you want it.
Alright, up next is Roland Waters, the Berlin Raceway, another Berlin Raceway competitor Waters is, the West Michigan short track racer, bringing a truck here to MIS to attempt his first race at the AST Voltson Super Trucks. Waters has competed in late model races around mostly Michigan and Indiana for many years now. Attempting his first truck race here today. And Waters backed down pretty hard there through turn 1. Looks like that truck might be a little more free, might be a lot more free than what he would like for it to be here. Definitely was not confident in that truck's ability to stick either way, and he's lifted again through turn 3 there. Look at the speed go down. About 164 is about the lowest speed we see that we have seen through turns 3 and 4 for most of the other trucks that have gone so far here today. And it's only a 44.3 as a result. No surprise there with how much time he spent off the throttle. Most trucks here will be foot to the floor the whole way around. It's certainly what you want to do in order to get the fastest lap possible here, but it is a bit of a narrow margin in terms of getting your truck set up and in terms of getting your line right. And Waters obviously was not feeling very good that first lap, but the second lap is going to be much better. He didn't lift through turn 1 that time, or through turn 3. Still running a little slower, though, than most of the other trucks thus far, but the time will improve either way. By nearly a full second, in fact. 43.4. Slightly under 1 second slower than Caitlin Holt. Whoops. Wrong button. That puts Waters second to last out of the 10 trucks who have gone thus far. That puts him 9th. About 1/10 of a second behind Flip Papadopoulos.
Hans. Just make sure you get every favor. Just touch all your seatbelts, touch all your connections, touch your Hans. Just make sure you get everything like you want it.
Up next is Tiffany Rogers, the second of the two legendary motorsports trucks, bringing the Howard Garden Center's SAR to the line to begin the first of her 2 laps here. Rogers is another one of the aforementioned Terre Haute Speedway drivers competing in this series. Her rookie season was 2017. And while she has not won a race in this series, the highlight of her career thus far was quite possibly that very season, when she scored the pole position for the race at Terre Haute in front of her home crowd and all her friends and family. It was a very big day for Tiffany Rogers. No relation, I should mention, to the Rogers family that includes Kellen Rogers Ashby and Tiffany Matthews. And her first lap was a 42.740. The clear trend so far has been that most everyone's second laps have been an improvement over their first. Rogers will be hoping for the same here, sailing into turn 3. Having to sacrifice a little bit of speed on the exit of 4 there, but is that going to compromise her lap? Almost the exact same time on lap 2. It is an improvement for Tiffany Rogers by 0.02 of a second, to be specific, but an improvement nonetheless. 42.738.
Favor. Just touch all your seatbelts, touch all your connections, touch your Hans. Just make sure you get everything like you want it.
Next on the track is the number 47 0 Kelvin Antifreeze SAR, or is it the O Kelvin Antifreeze, of Matt Jacobs, the young dirt track racer all the way from Kansas, the Heartland Speedway competitor. This is their first attempt at a race in this championship. Jacobs has spent most of the first part of this year competing in the National Dirt Trucks to great success. He has a victory in that series this season. I don't remember offhand exactly what track that was at, so excuse me for that. His first lap, though, was a 42.68. Going to try to see how much they can improve here on lap number 2. Carrying a fair bit of speed through turns 3 and 4 there. Rolling through the center of the corner quite nicely. This lap sure looks better than the first, but how much better exactly? At the line, only slightly, a 42.609 for Matt Jacobs in truck number 47. And where does that put Jacobs? in the running order. 12 cars have gone so far, and that is good enough for 6th. Jacobs' victory was at the 7077 Speedway in Cambridge, Ohio. I felt bad about forgetting that, and I just looked that up for reference. Next truck on the track is Max Resner, another driver looking to make his first start in this series here this weekend. Resner, a competitor at the Galesburg Speedway, where he and his older sister race on a regular basis. This big 2-mile, this wide sweeping 2-mile super speedway here at Michigan International Speedway is a far cry from the flat quarter-miler that is the Galesburg Speedway. One of the most beloved little tracks on the schedule, Galesburg is. But it's a very much a learning experience for Resner. There will not be much there will not be much that he can take from his experiences at Galesburg and apply here this weekend, and that's the case for a lot of the drivers in this series. Seems a bit obvious to have not really mentioned until now, but most of the competitors in this race are very unfamiliar with competing on tracks of this nature. Speedway and super speedway racing, very much unfamiliar territory to most of these drivers. But luckily for them, today is only qualifying, or this morning is only qualifying, and you won't have to worry about racecraft here, just foot to the floor speed. And Max Resner's first lap is faster than his second, bucking the trend that we've seen so far. And that first lap was a 43.021. It's going to put him 10th. Just holding on to a top 10 starting spot right now, but of course, only 13 cars have gone. And from the speed that most everyone else has shown, I do not imagine that he's going to stay there. But still a solid lap from the young racer from Galesburg.
Touch all your seatbelts, touch all your connections. Favor, touch all your seatbelts, touch all your connections, touch your Hans. Just make sure you get everything like you want it.
Lap 1 begins for truck number 84. This is Zach Churchill. The Flat Rock Speedway competitor. Driving his familiar truck number 84, as he has since this series began 7 years ago. It's been one of the most, he's been competitive throughout his entire duration in this series, but in spite of this, he only has one victory to his name, which came back in that very first season of competition. He won the very first dirt track race that the Voltson Super Trucks ever visited in the middle of the 2014 season, the Winston Speedway. Grabbed the victory there in spite of having never raced in a dirt track before, and he has not done it yet since, and he has not done it again since in this series. Maybe a good opportunity for him today, though. He has been very fast at this racetrack for the past several years, and his teammate won it last year, or in 2019, I should say. His teammate won the most recent running of this race. 43.1 was not a very good first lap for Churchill, but lap 2 is also a 43.1. A marginally faster one, but a 43.1 nonetheless for Churchill and Truck 84. Whoops. Don't know how I did that there. Breaking my own tables here. To give you an idea of just how on top of things I've been here, I only just now realized that the window here for the game has been significantly smaller than the screen itself. I don't know why that is the case.
The Grand Marshal for today's race.
I really don't know what I'm doing in the first place. So hopefully that resolves itself, because I don't really know how to on my own. Doesn't look like that it has. I am sorry. The 333 Leonard of Ron Anderson has returned to MIS once more to compete in one of his 2 annual races of the year. By which I mean Anderson is a bit of a unique case in this series in that he is not only a hobbyist, but the race here at MIS and the finale at Berlin are typically the only 2 auto races that this driver competes in during the entire year. This is not something that he does on a regular basis. And despite this lack of experience and that lack of seat time compared to many of these other short track superstars, Anderson has always been very fast when he's shown up. More so at Michigan here than at Berlin. But even at Berlin, he fits right in with the rest of the field for someone with so little experience. I believe he qualified on the pole position here in 2017, and that's not going to happen again here today. In fact, his second lap was a fair bit slower, 2.5 tenths slower than his first lap, but that first lap was still quite solid, pretty good in fact, at a 42.59. Confounded. I did it again. I don't know what I'm doing in order to cause that. 42593. I'm more careful when I'm highlighting things, apparently.
The Grand Marshal for today's race. The Grand Marshal for today's race underway. To get the Grand Marshal for today's race. Down at the head of the field for today's race. Down at the head of the field. Underway. Down at the head of the field.
Moving on, we have a big name here on the track now. It's Jason Miller and his familiar truck number 40, his Miller Auto and Repair SAR. Driving the only Operation JM truck in the field today, Operation JM being one of the most successful teams in the history of the Voltson Super Trucks. Between all the cars that they have run, they have a combined 13 wins, I believe, between them, which is over 20% of all of the races that have been contested in this series thus far. Historically, this team, has been 2 or 3 trucks, all owned and operated by owner-driver Miller, but there is only one here today at MIS, his traditional number 40, and his first lap is a new pole position, provisional pole position time. That's a 42.431. Miller's only 1 lap into his run, and he is already on the pole by 9 thousandths of a second. A very, very, very slim margin over Caitlin Holt, but he's already on the top of the boards and still with time to improve further. Let's see what he can do here. Rounding turn 4 and coming to the line. Lap 2 is even better still. That's a lot better still. That's a 42.282 for Jason Miller. Yet another of the Terre Haute action track racers, possibly the most successful of them all. He and Camden Rhodes probably are. A lot of these trucks have been setting lap times very similar to each other. We have a lot of 42.5s, a lot of 42.6s, and thus far, only 2 42.4s. Those were the fastest of the day up until now, and then Miller just smashed those lap times with a 42.282. That's going to be tough to beat. Miller was the 16th car to take to the track, which means that we are halfway through our 32 trucks who will be competing in the race later today. I spent so much time there talking about Miller and his team that I'm not sure it escaped me to mention, I think, that Miller has won this very race before. There are 3 former winners of the Irish Hills 100 here in the field today. and Miller was the first of them to take to the track for qualifying.
For today's race. The Grand Marshal for today's race. Down at the head of the field to get underway.
Miller not only won
Let's listen in.
this very race in 2015, he won on debut. We had never seen him or Operation JM before that day, not in the Voltson Super Trucks, that is. They showed up, won in what was a very close finish over Michael McKinley. He won by about half a truck length. That was the closest finish in this series by far, at this track in this series by far. And then he went on to win the next week at Flat Rock, just in case anyone was thinking that the sort of crapshooty nature of super speedways racing is what allowed him to take that win. He went out and won at Flat Rock the very next race. And then his teammate Danny Vigo won the following two races after that. Hard to think of a bigger way to make your name known, to arrive on the scene in the championship than that. And they have won as a team many more races since, as I mentioned. And on to our next driver in the running, it's Bill Brennan, another driver looking to make their first start. He is a dirt track racer from Ohio, competitor mostly at the Limaland Motorsports Park, and his first lap was a 47.7. That was... something might be wrong with this truck here. He was only going 155 miles an hour into turn 1 and still down in third gear. That's a fair bit worse than Dale Clow was earlier. And not to be harsh to the owner-driver from Illinois, but considering his lack of pace in the FARC Truck Series in years past, I admittedly don't think we were expecting him to outpace anyone here today, but it looks like that's going to happen with Bill Brennan coming around to the line and a 46.165. That's at least faster than lap 1. It's a fair bit faster than lap 1. But this team has work to do if they're going to be in the running for the win later this afternoon. Oops.
The Grand Marshal for today's race. The Grand Marshal for today's race. The Grand Marshal for today's race. Down at the head of the field. Underway. Down at the head of the field. Let's listen in.
Andy Piper is our next driver on the track. The 20-year-old racer from, I believe Grand Rapids. I'm attempting to verify that right now. And the other of the Lester Racing trucks, the number 13 Lennard, the Dr. Cranium helmets for racing machine. Piper and Robbins, along with their team, both new to the championship this year, trying to see what they can do in their first years in a competitive tour. They'll both be going for the championship, and it's a 42.6. Solid first lap for Piper here. Confirming that Piper is indeed from Grand Rapids, another one of the West Michigan racers in the field here today. Most of his racing has also been at the Berlin Raceway. And as we mentioned before, like so many others in the race, making his first attempt at a track nearly this size. Most of these competitors haven't raced at a track even a quarter this large before, or nothing larger than a quarter, I should say. 42.608 is Piper's second lap and his faster of the two. Well, confound it, I did it again. That's better. I suppose I don't need to sort this every time as I go through. Probably save me some time if I didn't, eh? Well. Piper about a tenth and a half slower than his teammate Robbins. And still very much in the ballpark as to what we've been expecting from most of the top racers in the field here today.
The Grand Marshal for today's race is about to give the command to get underway. Down at the head of the field, to get underway. Down at the head of the field, let's listen in.
Up next is Kevin Fitzroy. Fitzroy, a competitor from the Onaway Speedway, did not have the resources to put this truck together and bring it down here to the race on his own. At Onaway, he races street stocks on a very limited budget, but he and some of his friends from the track have worked together, put this machine together into one piece, and brought it down here for the big show here this weekend. Putting in a great effort to get this team together and here for the race. We're not sure if they're going to be showing up at any point this year apart from this event. Touring is not something that they really do. And it's a 43.199 for the first lap for Kevin Fitzroy. That may not be the fastest time we've seen today, but it's an effort that Fitzroy and his friends can be quite proud of, I'd say, considering what they had to do to get here, how little money that they had to spend to get here, or how little money that they had available to spend to get here, but they are here anyway, and about to complete their second lap. Kevin Fitzroy gets into the 42-second bracket with a 42.921. Not bad at all for a street stock racer. And his friends from all the way up in Onaway, the little quarter miler up in the north of the Lower Peninsula. It's going to put him 13th out of the 19 cars who have gone thus far. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's a very good effort indeed.
Grand Marshal for today's race. The Grand Marshal for today's race underway. To give the Grand Marshal for today's race. The Grand Marshal for today's race underway. Down at the head of the field underway. Down at the head of the field. Let's listen in.
It's another Terre Haute action track racer on the track right now. It's Danny Vigo, driving truck number 8 this year for his self-owned team. Vigo, as I mentioned previously, started racing in the series alongside Jason Miller as Miller's teammate at Operation JM. Vigo won 3 races in his first season of competition, and has not won since. He went winless in 2016, and in 2017 unexpectedly left the team to start fielding his own truck, and did not get off to a very strong start in his career as an owner driver. His Voltson Super Trucks tenure as an owner driver did not have a lot of pace that first year in his first year as an owner driver, but throughout 2018 and 2019, he very steadily improved, and by the end of last season, he scored his first podium as an owner driver at the Berlin Raceway, which was a very pleasant surprise to see. A very, very strong effort from Vigo that day, and we've all been wondering if the speed from that day and from the back end of that season is going to carry over here into 2021 now that we are almost 2 years beyond that race. And it's a very fast lap from Danny Vigo indeed. His first lap, I forgot to mention, I was talking so much about his career up to this point, I failed to notice that his first lap was a 42.415. That was the second fastest time of the day, and then his second lap was near identical, 0.003 of a second faster. So 2 very, very fast laps for Danny Vigo there. And that's going to put him on the outside of the front row, provisionally, with a 42.412. That's going to move Caitlin Holt into 3rd place and off the front row. Still going to be a very strong start for the young rookie, for the debutante Holt, either way. But with 20 trucks down and 12 left to go, it is Jason Miller with the time to beat, and his old teammate Danny Vigo, both making up the front row, with Holt in 3rd, as I just mentioned, and Alex Robbins, another driver who has not competed in this series or at a track nearly this size before, in 4th. Very, very impressive runs from both Holt and Robbins, as well as a number of other drivers that we have seen thus far.
The Grand Marshal for today's race is about to give the command to get underway. Down at the head of the field, the command to get underway. Down at the head.
I forgot to remove the 8 truck from the roster. That's better.
The Grand Marshal for today's race.
Vigo already set a very fast lap time. He has no need to do it again. 42.412 would be very hard to top, and as I mentioned, only 1 truck has done that thus far today. Up next is the number 21 Lennard, the Strauss Racing Team truck, driven by Pedro Menares. Menares is a competitor at the Flat Rock Speedway, another one of the tracks that has seen a lot of its competitors make appearances in this series before. I mentioned how many Terre Haute action track racers have found success in this series. The same can be said for a few other tracks in the region within the bubble that this series tends to tour in. including Flat Rock Speedway. Toledo Speedway, by extension, it's only about half an hour away from Flat Rock. A lot of racers have come from the Kalamazoo Speedway. A lot of Kalamazoo Speedway racers have won in this series. And Berlin, of course, which has hosted the season finale every year since the series' first season of competition in 2014. Menarez' first lap is a 43.106. Not too far off the pace of the rest of the drivers who are currently sitting in the top 10, but I'm sure he would like a little more speed out of this second lap here. That truck not quite running as fast down the straightaways as some of the other drivers have been. Looks very stable in the corners, however. Coming to the end of lap 2, and it's a much better lap than lap 1 is. Big improvement over that 43.1. It's down to a 42.75 for Pedro Menarez.
The Grand Marshal for today's race is about to give the command to get underway. Down at the head of the field, let's listen in.
Truck number 143 is up next. This is Kiara Thomas. The young racer from Worthington Hills, Kentucky, driving the Kiki Ricky's famous Austrian fried chicken machine, and looking to make her first start in the Voltson Super Trucks here today. Thomas, primarily a late model racer, doesn't plan to be showing up to many races in the Super Trucks this year, but she and her team are here today at MIS, and we expect them back for the finale at Berlin as well in September. Another one of the many drivers for whom this speedway is very unfamiliar territory, and her first lap is a 42.893. Solidly in the 42-second bracket, where you probably want to be if you want a chance at competing for the win later this afternoon. The draft, of course, plays a very important role at a track of this size, and with trucks of this aerodynamic profile. But even if you have enough speed to keep up with the pack, you need more power out of, you need to get more power out of your truck to be able to move through the pack you're in and up to the front. And an improvement on Thomas's second lap, like most of the other racers thus far. She sets a 42.747. Puts her 14th out of 22 trucks thus far.
Grand Marshal for today's race. The Grand Marshal for today's race. Down at the head of the field for today's race. Down at the head of the field to get underway. Down at the head of the field. Let's listen in.
Up next is Nicole Karski in the 65 Safety Cone Ice Cream Lennard. Safety Cone, a ice cream product found almost exclusively at the concession stands of short tracks up and down the Midwest. And Karski, a young racer from Wisconsin, the Wisconsin International Raceway competitor. A very, very healthy and competitive racing scene. I was going to say up in northern Wisconsin, but really throughout the entirety of the state, as well as the rest of the Midwest, of course. And Karski's no exception. She's already found success in some of her late model appearances there, even if she doesn't have as much experience as many of the other drivers in this field. 42.618 for Karski's first lap here. And rolling through turns 1 and 2 with some good speed there. Minimum speed through the corner was only 165 miles an hour. That's faster than most trucks have been able to carry through that turn. Even though down the backstretch she tops out at 170, which in relative terms is still very fast, don't get me wrong, but not quite as fast as we have seen. Not the fastest we've seen today from these trucks in qualifying. It's going to be a very good lap nonetheless. Coming to the line, it's a 42.602, almost the same as lap 1. Solid time is going to put Nicole Karski in, I believe, about the middle of the running order. In fact, it's going to put her in the top 10. With 23 trucks having set a time thus far, we are reaching the point where if you set a time that puts yourself in the top 10, it's getting more and more likely that you will be able to stay there. I messed that up there. Let me just fix that really quickly. But as I was saying, we are reaching the point now where anyone who puts themselves in the top 10 will face fewer and fewer challengers as qualifying goes on here. Karski 8th as it stands. We're going to have to see if she stays there by the time all is said and done.
The Grand Marshal for today's race. The Grand Marshal for today's race. Underway. Down at the head of the field. Underway. Down at the head of the field. Let's listen in.
The lone truck for Jarvis Motorsports is up next, with rookie Sarah Morsaw behind the wheel. Morsaw going to be going for the championship in this Lennard this season, the young late model racer from Dowagiac in the southwest of the state. Competitor at Kalamazoo and Galesburg Speedways. Those two tracks, of course, very close to each other in terms of driving distance. Morsaw, the Potawatomi racer, has not managed to find victory lane yet in her late model races, but has shown a lot of promising speed for someone so new to full-sized cars. And at the end of the first lap, it's a 43.2 for truck number 123, so not the lap time she was looking for, I imagine, but with one more chance to make up for that here. This bright pink Tri-State Auto truck is going to be very difficult to miss in the race tomorrow. So whether or not she finds herself stuck in a pack of other trucks, it will at least be easy for her spotter to pick her out. We mentioned that the drivers are inexperienced. That same goes for a lot of the spotters too. And lap 2 is 42.804 for Sarah Morsaw. 4/10 improved over lap 1.
The Grand Marshal for today's race is about to give the command to get today's race. Down at the head of the field for today's race. Grand Marshal down at the head of the field. Underway. Marshal down at the head of the field. Grand Marshal down at today's race. Down at the head of the field. Underway. Marshal down at the head of the field. Let's listen in. The command to get underway. Down at the head of the field. Let's listen in.
Last time we had a former winner of this race on the track. He set the provisional pole position. Let's see what Brianna Prinzhorn can do in truck number 7. The most recent winner of this race, having taken the checkered flag in 2019. Prinzhorn has been a competitor in this series, much like her teammate Churchill, since the 2014 season, when the series first began. And it took her a little longer to find victory lane, having done so for the first time in 2017 at the Nelson Ledges Road Course. But the Toledo Speedway racer, in spite of her short track background, has only won 2 races this far in the series, and they have been at Nelson Ledges, and as I just mentioned, right here. Neither of which are short tracks, not by any sense of either term. But she's adapted very well to them both, especially at Nelson Ledges, where she's been very fast every year. Not so fast for lap 1 here at MIS, though, not this year at least. 43.6 was her first lap time, and there's not a lot of speed from that truck going down the straightaways here either. It's not topping out quite as high as a lot of the other drivers who have been contending for pole. And still in the 43s on lap 2. Very, very slightly outside the 42-second bracket. It's a 43.006 for Brianna Prinzhorn. Which is about the same speed as her teammate Zach Churchill. So one would suspect that the Prinzhorn racing trucks might not be performing as well as they were last year. At least not in qualifying. We'll have to see for the race. They're not that far off the pace, but I'm sure they would have preferred to have been higher up the starting lineup. They'll have a little bit of work cut out for them now, come time for the race. but we have seen drivers make up bigger gaps before, bigger deficits before.
The Grand Marshal for today's race is about to give the command to get underway. Down at the head of the field. Down at the head of the field. Let's listen in.
Up next, we have yet another former winner of this race. In fact, the only man who has ever won this race more than once, and the only man who has ever won this championship more than once. The biggest name to have come from this series, quite possibly, Daryl Quick. The number 82 in XR is back yet again for the race here at MIS. Quick, of course, as will be well known to anyone who is familiar with this series, won the very first race that the Super Trucks ever held, right here in 2014. He went on to win the championship later that year and won it again, the championship, in 2015, and then for a third time straight in 2016, before finally leaving the series right after that. He has only competed at this racetrack ever since, but he's continued to compete here every year. In fact, the first year in which he was not full-time was 2017, and that was the year in which he scored his second win at this track. Quick, always one of the biggest threats for the win in this series and in this race. Went up to compete in the FARC ranks due to his success here in the Voltson Super Trucks for a few years, and nearly scored a win in the Low Dollar Series at Albuquerque Speed Bowl, losing out on a last lap pass. The victory went to Harry Esanola that day. But again, Quick's back in the Super Trucks for today's race at MIS, as always, and it's fair enough lap time with a 42.7. Might not put him very high up the running order, but it is right on pace with everyone else. And I'm sure that Quick will not be too worried about his race pace in his orange and blue number 82 machine. In fact, he's 14th out of 26 trucks that have gone, so of everyone who's gone thus far, he's just one spot shy of being in the top half of the trucks who have gone thus far.
The Grand Marshal for today's race is about
Meanwhile,
to give the
nobody
command
has
to
been
get
able to
underway.
touch the
Down at the head of the field. Let's listen in.
42.282 time set by Jason Miller about halfway through the session. Nobody else has even touched the 42.3 second bracket. There are still a handful of drivers who have a shot at doing so, though, who have yet to make their run. Right now, it's Dan Louison's turn, the South Carolinian racer in the number 85 truck for Cyba Sport, carrying sponsorship from his own bar and grill, his musical bar. Admittedly, it's escaping me at the moment, so apologies to Louison. And his first lap is a 42.54. That is one of the faster first laps that we have seen from anyone today. Louison is a competitor in the National Dirt Trucks, another one of the National Dirt Trucks racers who is attempting to make the race here today, or who will be making the race here today. There are no DNQs for this event, barring any extraordinary circumstances. But Louison, a full-time competitor in the dirt trucks, running some races on the pavement as well here in the Voltson Super Trucks, making the long haul up from South Carolina to do so. And Michigan will be the first of his races on his limited schedule this year. Lap 2 is even faster than the first lap, down to a 42.51. for Dan Louison. Louison may be a dirt track racer by trade, but that was a very solid lap time from the owner driver. Or, not the owner driver, I'm sorry. Louison brings the sponsorship. He does not run the team.
The Grand Marshal for today's race. The Grand Marshal for today's race underway. Down at the head of the field. Underway. Down at the head of the field. Underway. Down at the head of the field. Let's listen in.
Well, we just saw one of the full-time competitors from the National Dirt Trucks competing in this weekend's race here in the Super Trucks, and as soon as Louison pulls off the track, we have another full-time NDT racer. It's Darren Gale, the Wisconsin racer from the Cedarburg Speedway, competing in the only Isani entered into the race here this weekend. You may have noticed there have been an awful lot of SARS and Lenards, and this is the only truck wearing an Isani body kit here this weekend. Gale has scored a couple of top 10 finishes, I believe, to kick off the throughout the beginning, of his NDT campaign. We're going to have to see how he adapts to not only the pavement, but to the pavement of a very large superspeedway such as MIS here today. 43.0 for his first lap time. Truck might not be tuned up quite as well as some of the other trucks in the field. And did he just set an identical lap time to his first lap? I think he did, because it was a 43.046 on no I'm sorry, it was a 43.056. That was his first lap. His second lap is exactly 1/100th of a second faster, still a 43.0 for Darren Gale, the 20-year-old dirt track racer.
The Grand Marshal for today's race is about to give the command to get underway. The Grand Marshal for today's race. Let's listen in. To give the command to get underway. Down at the head of the field. Let's listen in.
We're down to the final 4 trucks here in qualifying for the first round of the 2021 AST Voltson Super Trucks. Jason Miller has survived the attempts of the most recent 12 trucks to dethrone him from the provisional pole. But even though there are only four trucks left, they are some very heavy hitters indeed. The first of whom is Wilson Timothy in truck number 61. The young racer from Detroit with some past FARC truck experience about 10 years ago. Has spent most of the time ever since racing here in the Voltson Super Trucks. Timothy was the original driver for this team when they first showed up in 2015 and had only one truck at the time, this number 61 SAR, the Binford Tools machine. And he has been one of the most successful drivers in the series ever since, scoring wins most every year he's been here. I'm not sure if Timothy's had a winless season ever since 2016, when he scored his first career victory at the Winston Speedway. Admittedly, it's escaping me at the moment whether or not he has had a winless season ever since, but I don't believe that he has. Timothy always one of the drivers to beat here in the Voltson Super Trucks, and his first lap was a 42.734. Not good enough for pole, but there's still lap 2 yet to complete. Coming to the line right now, let's see what he has in that 61 truck, and it's a 42.6, up about a tenth over lap 1. That's going to put Timothy 15th, so he's going to start in about the middle of the field here.
The Grand Marshal for today's race is about to give the command to get underway down at the head of the field.
The 30th truck to take to the track belongs to a team that bears a very familiar name to most anyone watching the race here, I'm sure. This is the Griffith Motorsports truck, the number 70, driven by Danny Richards Jr. Speaking of names that will probably be familiar to most people, Richards Jr., the 15-year-old son of Dan Richards, the very acclaimed and accomplished American stock car racer, whose achievements include a victory at the Rockford 200 in 2012, as well as the ASCC All-American Series Championship that very same year. Richards, of course, still competing in the All-American Series. He is here this weekend to watch his son compete in his very first race on a speedway. Richards Jr. has spent most of his young career thus far racing at the Anderson Speedway in Indiana, where the Richards family has lived for some time now. And it's a 42.363. That's the second driver of the day to set a lap under 42.4. So he's already on the front row, and that was only lap 1. What's the second lap going to look like? Is it going to be even better? Is Richards Jr., at the age of 15, about to steal the pole from Jason Miller, one of the most accomplished competitors in the Voltson Super Trucks? Oh, that was some good speed through turn 4. He only barely touched 165 before getting back on the gas to the line. Is it going to be enough? Not quite, but very close for Danny Richards Jr. It's a 42.2, but a 42.299. Just 17 thousandths of a second away from knocking Jason Miller off the top of the scoring pylon. That, I would have to imagine, has grabbed some people's attention for sure. I mentioned that there were some very heavy hitters in this among these final cars left yet to run. I admittedly wasn't really uh, thinking that Richards Jr. would be the bigger threat among them, simply because of his age and lack of experience in full-sized race cars, but uh, apparently he has enough of a combination of experience and natural talent to get the job done, at least in his one-lap run, because that was a very, very impressive qualifying run from Danny Richards Jr. He and his father both, I'm sure, are going to be very happy about that one, and very excited for the race this afternoon. Like we've said a few times, though, it's not really about qualifying,
Let's listen
in the sense that qualifying does not pay out, or doesn't really mean much as long as if you can't convert that to a good race and a good finish. So we'll have to see where that team and that driver stand when it comes to that. But so far, Richards Jr. looking very capable. As we move on to the 31st truck of the day, and it's Brian Kelly, the Rockford Speedway racer, who, in addition to Darrell Quick, is the only the only former series champion in the race here today. Kelly was the first driver to win the championship in the Voltson Super Trucks who was not named Darrell Quick, having done so in 2017, with no wins to his name at the time. Lap 1 is a 42.601, a very solid lap time on its own, and we'll have to see if he can go any faster here on lap 2. But as I was saying, Kelly, unfortunately, was known for most of his Super Trucks career as the man who definitely deserved to have won a race the most among people who never had. He won the title without a single race victory, and it took him until 2019, the most recent year in which we have contested this series, to finally score his first win, and he went on to score 2 more. So Kelly coming into this season a 3-time winner, and with all the confidence that that brings, and coming to the line to complete lap 2, it's going to be a 42.524 for Brian Kelly, second of the Binford Racing Team trucks. It's going to put him in a pretty good spot. Whoops, my mistake. Going to put him in a pretty good spot for the race. And with that, there is one truck left to run. Jason Miller is only a couple of minutes away from earning the pole position for the 100-mile season opening race here at Michigan International Speedway.
The Grand Marshal for today's race is about to give the command to get underway for today's race. The Grand Marshal for today's race.
But in order for him to do that, he's got to hope that Amberly Weiss does not have the speed to take that pole away from him. And she may very well have that speed in hand, because Weiss has long been another one of the superstars of the series, and a regular threat for wins week in and week out. She only has 3 to her name in spite of having joined the series midway through 2014, but frankly, she should have more. Various circumstances have resulted in her losing a few races that almost surely would have gone to her truck number 75. But the bright orange hotshot energy machine, ready to go for her first win on a speedway, ready to go for her first win, looking for her first win on a paved track, in spite of the fact that most of the races in this series are on pavement. All three of her wins thus far have come on the dirt. In fact, they've come on the 3 different dirt tracks that we have visited up to this point. 42.4, that's a really good first lap for Amberly Weiss. So she's already going to start up at the front, even if she can't improve on lap 2, but we're going to have to see if she can. 166 miles an hour through turn 2, and no slower. That's a lot. That's really good cornering speed rolling through the turn for the 75 truck. What's the other end of the speedway going to look like? Here she comes into the north end, diving into turn 3. This is her last chance to go for the pole. This is Miller's last challenge that he's going to have to hope comes up short. And it's too close to call right now. We're going to have to wait for the line and see. Here comes Weiss, 42.388. That's good enough for third, but not good enough for the pole. As Jason Miller is your pole winner, has won the pole for the 2021 Irish Hills 100 here at the Michigan International Speedway. He and Danny Richards Jr. will make up the front row for the race. They will lead the remaining 30 cars to the green flag later this afternoon for the 100-mile show, for the 100-mile main event. Interestingly enough, the 2 Team Michigan trucks, Danella Jacobson, was the very first truck to set a time, and by coincidence, the very last truck to set a time was Weiss, her teammate. And here is the starting lineup for the race, with Miller on pole and Richards once more on his outside. Weiss going to be on the inside of row 2 with that lap time of hers, and Danny Vigo on the outside of row 2. Very strong run for Vigo and his family-owned team. They must be very excited for the race and for this season to come. Caitlin Holt was on provisional pole for a while, still going to start the race from 5th, and Alex Robbins on debut is going to start in 6th. Richards is the highest ranking driver who has not started a race in this series yet, but Holt and Robbins, making up row 3, haven't started a race either. Dan Louison, the National Dirt Trucks racer, in 7th. Brian Kelly in 8th. Danella Jacobson, Weiss's teammate, in 9th. And Robert Embry is going to round out the top 10 when they come to the green flag. And here's a look at the rest of the field, starting from row 6. It's Juan Cortez, Ron Anderson, then Karski, Piper, Jacobs, and Alex DeFranco will start the race from 16th out of 32. Then at the second half of the field, it's Legend Hart and Wilson Timothy. Then Daryl Quick starting a bit further back than we expected. Tiffany Rogers, Kiara Thomas, Pedro Menares, Morsaw, Fitzroy, Princehorn, last year's winner, the 2019 winner of this race. Resner, Gale, the other dirt trucks racer. Churchill, Papadopoulos, Roland Waters. Dale Clow is going to start from the inside of the last row, and starting shotgun on the field will be Bill Brennan. And that concludes qualifying for the 2021 Irish Hills 100. Thank you for tuning in, and the real action is still yet to come. The 50-lap 100-mile race to kick off the new season will be taking place later in the day here at Michigan International Speedway. We hope to see you then, where we will present to you excuse me. We hope to see you then. I didn't prepare a way to conclude this stream, and oh boy is it showing. But anyways, hope to see you then. Thank you for tuning in.